Rashi Emor is illustrious parsha. We know it's Seth's bar mitzvah parsha. Heard Seth playing it many times, so he does a beautiful job. And last year was Hobbs' bar mitzvah parsha. So Baruch Hashem, it's a good thing. It's a good parsha to have as a bar mitzvah parsha because the aliyos, I think 4 through 6, are what we learn on Yontif. So you have a lot of double dipping. You learn this, you're good. So the also Aaron Troy's bar mitzvah parsha. So okay, the pasuk says the kidashto, the Kohen is supposed to be sanctified. The word lechem in the Torah means food. It doesn't really mean bread, because he brings the food for Hashem. Kadoshi Allah, he shall be holy for you. Ki kadosh, because Ani Hashem mekadeschem, because I am Hashem who sanctifies you. So Rashi says, verse 8, V'kidashto, sanctify the Kohen al korcho, against his will. Shemlo ratzeh garesh halkeu v'yatzreu achi garesh. And if he doesn't want to divorce a woman who he's not allowed to, Shemlo ratzeh garesh, if he doesn't want to divorce a woman who he's not allowed to be married to, we give him lashes, rebuke him until he divorces her. This is one of the things that everybody should be aware of, that you don't have the option to be a Kohen. It's not an option. You are born it, and sometimes people say, okay, I'm in love with this person and I want her to convert, and so then I can marry her, but you're a Kohen, you're not allowed to marry a person who converts. So you say, okay, so I'll give him my kahuna. No, you're not allowed to do that. You sanctify him against his will. Now the Kohen, it's not an option. Just like, by the way, just like the certain denominations of Judaism, after the bar mitzvah, they study for several years and then they have confirmation, where they're saying, we are confirming that we want to be Jewish because it's an option. No, you don't have the option to be Jewish. Yeah, if you're born Jewish. If you're not Jewish, you have the option to be Jewish. If you're born Jewish, it's not an option. You can't get out. You can not obey, but then you're a sinner and you're viewed as a Jew who rejects his faith. And Judaism, well, the idea is, Jacob Katz wrote a whole book about this. But the Jew, even though he sins, is considered a Jew. So you can't leave. Once you're in, you're in. And not only that, if you're a Kohen, you can't leave the kahuna.
Does he still do things if he chooses to marry somebody that he's not committed to, based on what you said, that we don't judge, just like somebody that drives on Shabbos, we still let them get an aliyah. We don't judge what averos are like worthy of expulsion or that type of thing, or what happens.
The Shulchan Aruch says very quantifiably, if there's a Kohen who's married to a non-Jew or a divorcee or a person who he's not allowed to marry, and he's not supposed to do the priestly blessing. But that's only as long as he's married to this person. If they divorce, then he could go back to service. It's an irony that if a Kohen, let's say, marries a divorced woman, then his offspring is called a halal. His offspring is no longer a Kohen. But if the Kohen then divorces her, he could go back to serving as a Kohen. And then the offspring is out forever. But the offspring of that union is out forever. But the Kohen is not out forever. He's still a Kohen. And he still has the prohibitions of being a Kohen. Can't come in contact with the dead. He still has those prohibitions.
We have to welcome somebody that wouldn't give a get, that eventually gives the get, to be able to just be welcomed back in the shul to do everything, just like a Kohen.
I mean, you're talking about a case where a person's not giving a get, so we employ, I understand, so we employ social shunning as a method, because we don't have too many methods. We employ shunning as a method to try and get him to give the get. So then if you don't let him come back into the community afterwards, then in essence, you've taken away the incentive of giving the get. So of course he should come back in. I mean, I'm not saying that you have to be best friends with such a person. He's clearly
He was the godmother beforehand, he could be the godmother. Just like somebody that committed a crime. That's happened in schools that I know, a terrible crime against other congregants. And that person went to jail, did their time, and now is the godmother.
In general, I think like these cases are,
Somebody get a chance to
I,
come back.
I think these cases are nuanced. You know, it depends on the type of crime, the way it affects people, the manner in which this person repented. So I think every case is case sensitive. But like, for example, in general, my general approach is that we have to allow the person to come in to the community and be a part of it. At least when I was rabbi of a synagogue, like a formal synagogue, that was my approach. But at the same time, sometimes the sin is so great and so notorious that it's not appropriate for the person to come back in. It just makes it a too much of a uh, tumult, a mishigas, hurtful to people. So yeah, these are very sensitive questions that is really my I guess my rule of thumb to people. I know Seth is moving to Kent Mill, but people in all walks of life, some of the people here are younger, they're gonna grow older, gonna go to your own synagogue. I think in general, this is the guideline I'm gonna give you. You should really give, in this case, these types of cases, give the rabbi the benefit of the doubt, because usually the people who are in the congregation don't have the full picture. So if you like the rabbi, give him the benefit of the doubt. If you think the rabbi's an idiot, then go to a different place. And those are your, I mean, but if you like the rabbi, I think you should give him the benefit of the doubt here, because the rabbi has the full picture and he probably can't share the full picture with people because it's too sensitive. Not saying that the rabbi is not capable of making mistakes, of course, but benefit of the doubt doesn't mean he's for sure right, but it means that these are very sensitive questions, and yeah, and they're often not a perfect answer. Yes, Jerry.
Yes, I'm not sure that I understood a statement. A Kohen who marries a divorced Jewish woman and produces a child, that child is ridden out of the Jewish community.
A Kohen who marries a divorced Jewish woman and they give birth to a child, the child is not a Kohen, but the child, but that child can marry a regular Jew. They just can't function as a Kohen anymore, and they can't marry a Kohen
Okay.
if it's a girl. But the child can marry a Jew, they're just not a Kohen anymore. It's called the halal, and they're called a halal. And yeah, that's actually not uncommon. Yes, Guy. Yeah, Guy.
You say a Kohen can marry someone who's a convert.
Cohen cannot.
Cannot.
Yeah.
What if the person is not a convert, but maybe her grandma or like one?
If they had a grandmother who was a convert, it's okay. It's just if they're a direct convert, that Cohen cannot marry the person. But it's only a male Cohen cannot marry a female convert. But a male convert can marry anyone. Can marry because the prohibition is on a man marrying a female convert. That's the concept. The Kohen is holiness, extra kedusha. Kadoshi Allah, Rashi says, Nahogbo kedusha, treat him with holiness. This is the honor that comes. The Kohen takes priority. The Kohen gets the first aliyah. Levarech rishon b'suda, and at the meal sits down. He's the one who makes the blessing first on the zimun. He has that honor. What about the Levi? Does the Levi come? Let's say there's no Kohen. Do you give the like Steve here's a Levi, so there's no Kohen. Should you give the Levi to lead the benching? Should you give it to the Levi? Is the Levi come in place after the Kohen? Does the Levi come? So what do we say? What?
It's a debate.
As everything is, it's a debate, but
There's no description.
no.
You don't do the lady. You do the lady.
Well,
Lady don't go in.
Well, that's getting called to the Torah. When getting called to the Torah, that there's a debate. Do you go to the Levi or do you just break it all up? But in general, I wasn't asking about that. I was asking about leading the Zimun, let's say, or giving it honor. Like the Kohen comes first. So there, the consensus is that why is the Levi honored typically?
Multiple reasons. because of what they did.
So the main reason why this is what Rabbi Soloveitchik said, who himself is a Levi. He said that the main reason why the Levi is honored is because he serves the Kohen. His job is to take care of the Kohen. That's his service. So if there's no Kohen, the Levi doesn't have a job. So he gets pushed to the middle with everyone else. Because his holiness comes from his service to the Kohen. So anyway, that's humble. If I would be a Levi, but I'm just a regular Israelite. Okay, next verse 9. Uvas ish Kohen. Okay, so the Kohen, by the way, today has a lot of liabilities. He doesn't get to serve in the temple. Okay, he gets the first aliyah, but he can't marry anybody he wants, and he can't close the funeral. So today he's got a lot of liabilities. He does get to do the pidyon haben, but the strong practice is that he's supposed to return that money, or anyway, the custom is to return that money. So the Kohen really doesn't have too many advantages, but he does get to do the Birkat Kohanim every day, which is something I'm very grateful for. So the daughter of a Kohen, Kitech's note, at the so if the daughter of a Kohen commits adultery, she's desecrated her father and she's burnt in fire. Now, this is more severe than a regular Jewish girl who commits adultery, who gets strangulation, and fire is a harsher penalty. So but even that, let's look at Rashi says, when she becomes defiled, meaning to say, when she becomes defiled through adultery, she had a relationship with a man who was basically her husband, Vizinta, and she had adultery, either from the Erusin or from the Nisuin. There's two parts to a Jewish marriage. There's betrothal, which is a formal engagement. You need a divorce to break it, but yet they're still not living together like husband and wife. And then there's the Nisuin where they move in together. So if she commits adultery from either one, the daughter of the Kohen gets burnt in fire. And our rabbis were divided about this. The rabbis hold that there's actually a dispute about that, but the Hakomodim Shalo Dibra Akosu B'Pnuya. But everybody says we're not talking about an unmarried woman who commits or basically who has a sexual act. We're talking about a married woman or betrothed, and depending on the opinion, and she gets this fire penalty. And Tavia Mechalelas, she's defiled her father. Chelala ubista et kvodo. She's defiled and disgraced his honor, as it states, Aror shazu yalad, Aror shazu gidel. Cursed be the one who fathered this one, cursed be the one who raised this one. Let me just say, we don't do this anymore today in the Jewish faith. We don't do any capital punishments. I think the only one who is even the state of Israel. I think they only killed the Eichmann, but nobody else. We don't do capital punishments anymore. Even in the time of the Talmud, there was severe criticism of it, and they basically legislated it out of existence. But in Middle Eastern countries today, this is still done. If a girl is adulterous, even if she's quote unquote adulterous against her will, meaning even if it's non-consensual, she can face severe punishment from her family for having defiled their father's honor. So, not the Jewish people, but
Was it honor killings even inside of Israel, but not by Jews?
Arabs, and it's also in India.
Indians.
what about in Africa? Do we have anything like this in Africa? No honor killings? Not in Rwanda, but what in Somalia and
Maybe.
Rabbi, Mississauga, Ontario. Mississauga, Ontario, a guy killed his sister because she disgraced the family.
okay, and yeah. What were you saying, a guy?
Maybe in some countries like Sudan.
Okay.
Like it happened, but like in civilized countries, it stopped. Like in my country, it doesn't happen. I've never heard of any case like that.
Never heard of it. Okay, fine. And you're okay, well.
Strong fundamentalist Muslim populations in Nigeria.
It- and Somalia and
Sudan.
And Sudan.
Sudan and what
Well, even
about,
in the Sahel.
whatever, nobody's perfect. Okay, yeah, Jerry. Yeah,
Yes,
what were you saying, Jerry?
yeah, the Taliban kill their
Yeah,
women. for not-
Taliban, let's not forget about them, they do it too. These are, yeah, I mean, I hope nobody thinks I'm making light of this, it's the most horrific thing in the world, but there's so much evil in this world, but the world spends 99% of its outrage on the Jewish people. It's just, the irony is just so incredible. The amount of outrage in the world, it's the Jewish people, the greatest story ever told. That's all anybody in the world cares about. I love it when I meet somebody who's not Jewish and they say, "How many Jews are there?" I ask them, "How many Jews?" They think they're like, we know we're small, so maybe 100 million, 200 million as compared to like the 2 billion Muslims and 3 billion Christians or whatever. I said, there's like 15 million of us on a good day if you count, depending, like if you're very liberal, if you're counting, like if you count somebody who's got a Jewish grandparent, we get up to 15 million. Okay. The Kohen who is greater than his brothers, i.e., this is the Kohen Gadol, a high priest. Asher Yitzak al Rosho Shemen HaMishcha. He's anointed with oil. Umileas Yado, Uboshes HaBegadim, and his hands were inaugurated to, basically he was inducted to wear the priestly garments, because the Kohen Gadol, the regular Kohen, when he serves, wears how many garments? 4, but the Kohen Gadol, when he serves, wears 8. So as for Rosho Yifra, V'Gadav Yifrom. So he is not allowed to let the hair on his head grow long, and he's not allowed to tear his garments. When is this the case? When he is in mourning, as he's not allowed to be a mourner. Rashi says, Lo Yigdal Pera al. If he's mourning, the Kohen Gadol is not allowed to be in mourning. He has to represent the community at all times. What is going to be considered mourning? So this is a dispute in the Talmud, but we say anything more than 30 days is going to be considered to be wild hair. Anything more than 30 days. So here, you grab a chumash, Akiva, grab a chumash. Yeah. So he is not allowed to be a mourner. Even for his mother and his father, he cannot become defiled. Somebody showed me a video today. Excuse me, for every one of the day, he's not going to come. For his father and his mother, he cannot become tamei. Somebody showed me a video today by this group, a wonderful group called Thank You Hashem, and they interviewed a guy, and they said, "Give us the exceptions for who a kohen can become tamei." So he said the right answer. A regular kohen, not a kohen gadol, can become mother, father, brother, sister, son, daughter, Rahman son, and wife. But then I looked at the video. This guy, I recognized him, and he was the guy who did the big Hagbah on when we did the Nates at the White House. And in the video, it said the world famous Hagbah expert, because he's gotten a lot of play off of that. Anyway, I thought that was very good. Anyway, yes, Steve, what were you saying?
No, I was wondering about the prohibition of the father and mother if they die.
He's not allowed to go to it. He can't go. He can't go. He can't go. So look at what the Kohen Gadol can't go. The regular Kohen could go, but the Kohen Gadol is not allowed to even go to his father's funeral. But commentaries say, why does it say for his father and his mother?
He's allowed.
But elsewhere it says his mother and his father. What?
He's allowed to bury any dead body if no one else could, correct?
Yeah, we're about to get that Rashi, but the reason why it says for his father and his mother cannot become tamei, because how does he become the Kohen Gadol when his father dies? Usually the Kohen Gadol, if his son is worthy, he takes over for him. So as his father dies, right away he becomes appointed Kohen Gadol. He can't even go to the funeral. He's being told right away,
Does the father have to die, or does can the father hand over?
Can he abdicate? Yeah, he can abdicate, but they didn't always do that, right? Look at Rashi. He can't come into any souls of the dead. but all amace in the tent of the dead person. He's not allowed to come into the same room as a dead person. Navshos mace, and it says for every souls of the dead. Rashi says this tells us that if there's a quarter lug of blood, basically, let's say there's like 4.5 ounces of blood from the corpse, shemitame ba'ol. So you can't even be, let's say there's just blood of the dead body in the tent. The Kohen cannot go into that. So this is the point that Akiva said. On the one hand, he's not allowed to even come contact with his own father, Rahman al-Islam, his own mother, God forbid. But if he's going to even serve on the temple on Yom Kippur, the day, and as he's walking there, he sees a dead body and nobody else is around. It's an implausible scenario because he was surrounded. But let's say that is the scenario. He sees a homeless man, or a person who was never amounted to much in society, somebody who never achieved success of any kind, and he just drunk himself to death on the street, and he passes him by and he sees nobody's going to him. That takes precedence over everything else. So he's required to become tamei for an abandoned dead body, but not for his own parents. He's not allowed.
But his children.
He cannot go. The Kohen Gadol cannot go. The Kohen Gadol cannot go to the funeral of anybody other than abandoned dead body. Not only that,
would that nullify his service as a high priest in the temple for a period of time?
if he became tamei, then he would have to have the ashes of the red heifer sprinkled upon him before he could serve again. But the Gemara does discuss how he was able to go to his parents' funeral. He would be like a block and a half behind. They would go a block and they'd turn the corner and then he'd turn the corner behind it. So he was able to show respect in that manner, but he wasn't able to come close. The Gemara discusses how kind of would be, let's say, a little bit more than a block away, and that would be okay.
Is that why the Kohanim were buried at the edges of the cemetery, so that like on the other side of the fence, the son can be, or the daughter?
Yeah, it's called the Derech Kohanim, that the path of the Kohanim, that a lot of cemeteries in Israel are very sensitive about this, in America less so, but there are, if it's a religious cemetery, they'll be sensitive about it. But yeah, for sure, they have a path of the Kohanim, where the Kohanim are often buried at the edge, so that their family members could come close. Because you're also, even though a regular Kohen is allowed, to go to the funeral of their parents, etc., their relatives, that's only for the funeral. You can't go back and visit. So the only way you can do it is if you go to one of these funerals, cemeteries, which have what's called the Derech Kohanim, the path of the
Code.
yeah.
They can still participate or go through the year,
They are, well, let's see the next verse. Look what it says. Min hamikdash lo yitzei, v'lo yichalel es mikdash ha'ohav, ki nezer shem mishchas ha'ohav alav ani Hashem. He should not leave the temple, and he should not desecrate the temple, because a crown, the oil of his atonement, upon him I am Hashem. So what does this mean? Min hamikdash lo yitzei, einu holech achar amita, he doesn't follow the funeral procession. V'od mikan lamdu rabosenu she'haKohen Gadol makriv onin, that even while the Kohen Gadol is, before the body is buried, he's not disqualified. Normally everybody else is disqualified from service while they're mourning before the body is buried, but the Kohen Gadol brings his offering even while he's in that state. And that's the implication. Af im mesu aviv imo, even if his father and mother have died, he doesn't leave the sanctuary, he performs the service. A powerful idea that his service takes precedence over everything else. And you can imagine, let me just say this, there are today he's serving. I know with my nephew, he, you know, many of his very close friends were killed in service. And he said to me, but they are all still serving. They didn't, many of them couldn't even go to the funerals because they said now is not the time to mourn. Their obligation to the nation took priority over their emotional need to mourn. So that's in a little sense like the Kohen Gadol here. He's not able to serve in the his priority is to the nation. He's a servant of the nation, and therefore, even though he obviously could be in deep emotional distress because of the loss he suffered, nevertheless, his priority is to serve, and he can't even attend the funeral of his parents. Yes, Akiva, and then we'll stop and have a mincha. Yeah.
Around what year did the Kohen Gadol status